You're listening to the Makey Words Podcast.
You're finding out 10 years late. What do you think about that? It's the business model. It's the business model. And we just looked at each other, horrified. Rowan has like a staircase he climbs of cursing, where he starts off and he's just like we'll be watching something and he'll be like, "Look at this freaking guy right here." I'll be like, "Yeah, it's crazy." He's like, "Yeah, look at that freaking weirdo right there." Yeah, but
I have heard
pretty
him
weird.
do this.
Look at that friggin' weird guy. I'm like, yeah. He's like, look at that fucking weirdo right there, huh? Jesus, Rowan. I tell him sometimes because I don't know. I feel weird. I have no problem with him using it at home. It's just him using it out, which I did a lot as a little kid. I got in huge shit from second grade on for doing fucking shit everyone hated.
I told you guys I got in trouble for saying screw it, right? That was a bad word. I got sent to the principals. I had no idea. And my mom didn't either. But sorry, I interrupted.
No. I mean, that's crazy. Screw it. That's crazy. I want to say all through high school, I was saying fuck to teachers in different contexts, and I never got in trouble for it. A lot to my geometry teacher. He did not give a shit about anything. Not even geometry. Not the kids. Not his health.
As soon as I learned the words, I'm sure as everyone does, I said them a lot. But I have this memory, this like very definitive memory in my head of sitting at a lunch table in elementary school and just really forcing in a bunch of curse words. And the cool, quiet skater kid, Nate.
Forcing out.
Yeah. How the fuck are you fucking fuckers doing on this fucking glorious fucking
Yeah, that's
day,
what I mean. Like the think you should leave cum shot shit. But and then I'll never forget like the quiet, cool, I thought he was cool, like kind of skater kid just went, you really need to say those words that much. Like
what grade was this?
This was in 5th grade.
Wow.
And I just remember him calling me out on it where like, we get it that you know it. Yeah, I just remember feeling so stupid, like thinking I was sounding adult by cursing and then being called out by somebody my own age calling me childish for cursing too much.
Did you tell him to go fuck himself?
No, I cried.
Oh. Yeah, you weren't ready to use those words.
I was not ready to use those words.
To get called out.
Well, just a quick little change here. The reason why we were talking about this is we're popping these popping these on YouTube now, or at least very truncated clips.
Oh my god, I totally forgot why we even started talking about this.
That's okay. Well, Lily informed us that we use the word a lot, so we have to be not suitable for children.
Jesus, is that where this came from? This that we just talked about?
No. Yeah. She said it's flagged for not for children, so it's fine if we're swearing.
Oh, okay. Just if the children
so do it more, you're saying.
Exactly.
It's the content.
Yeah, so we're going to take...
So with that said, so we're doing a quick little change over here with the way that we do these pillar streams. We're trying to kind of laser in the best that we can, which is more just like a array of colors, not quite a laser, but into some kind of topic. And that topic tonight, there might be a little bit of rehashing that you guys have heard us do, but we were just going to kind of go over how we all met each other, or how we all got involved with this project in the first place. But no, so like Case.
I could basically bring us
everyone
up
knows
to speed.
Trios. Yeah.
Sure.
They know the band that you were in, they know that these were songs that you were working on that didn't quite fit with the band style, or that they didn't like, or whatever. And you compiled this list of demos and you just shared them with a couple friends. And that was while you were still primarily touring with Trios, and that was your main project. and then however that ended, or however, if you want to go into that at all.
Yeah, I can basically just catch us up to when Nick sort of joined the band officially.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
So at first, like you said, it was just this thing that I was doing in free time from the Receiving End of Sirens, and it was after we made our record in the fall. I went home for, I want to say, like a month and a half or something like that, which was the first time in a few years that I had gone back to California. And while I was there, I was just sort of still running off the same like high of making that record with the guys that I just got into my dad's studio while he was working on something else and started writing what ended up being the Dear Misleading demos. And like you said, I just kind of passed them around to friends, and then somebody ended up passing that around to Fred Feldman at Triple Crown. And while I was still in the Receiving End of Sirens, we were talking about me going off and doing an act 1 with Matt Squire.
Okay.
But
And
that ended
Trios
up,
was already on Triple Crown at this point, though, as
Trios was already on Triple Crown. So basically, I had these demos. At one point, Mike Marquis asked me if I wanted to do some shows as the Deer Hunter, and I ended up opening for the Receiving End of Sirens with the guys in the Receiving End of Sirens playing one show with me as the Deer Hunter.
I didn't even know that.
And that was pretty cool. And then, yeah, we did our last tour together. I got home for another visit to California. I got an email from the guys saying, like, we're through with you. And within like 2 days, both Mike Marquis and Fred Feldman had reached out to me and were like, if you want to do, we heard what's going on. If you want to do the Deer Hunter, like, we want to do the Deer Hunter with you. So then I brought a few people that I knew from New England in on it. Like I knew Luke Dent. I want to say he played in a band called Faraway that was like a pop punk band, but we always connected on musical tastes, specifically like loved the Beatles and loved Mr. Bungle, and that like got us a lot of mileage. But actually before that, probably more important to mention is that on that last tour with the Receiving End of Sirens is the first time I met Rob, because I think was that your first show with them?
That was my first
Providence?
full U.S. tour with them. We did like a little
you
regional thing headlining with Casino right before that. But yeah, that was 2006.
05? Oh, 06? Yeah.
Yeah, or beginning of 2006.
Yes, because I think by the fall of 2006, I put out Act 1, which was something that I was writing when I was still in the band. Like I remember writing The Pimp and the Priest while on some tour with Cartel. I don't know.
Okay.
I also I very vividly remember, for some reason, I think just because it felt like an honor that you would even ask me. In that As Tall as Lion set, I was poorly playing a fairly simple trumpet solo because I played trumpet through up until high school. But I remember you asking me if I would be interested in playing trumpet on some songs. Yeah. I had no context for that, obviously, only after the fact that I realized it. But I remember Dan kind of interrupting you and going like, no, he's not very good, man. You don't want him to do it.
That does sound like Dan. That does sound like Dan.
Well, but wait, so were you guys were you pretty chummy on that tour, or was it?
Yeah, I would say we were chummy. Like I don't think either of us got that much time to hang out, but we definitely hung out. I remember drinking gin and tonics with Rob.
Nice.
But basically, time ended in Trios. I brought in some people that I had already known without any necessary like plan on how I would build out the band. And then really quickly, I had Luke Dent, and it was like, maybe you'll play keyboards or something, whatever. We'll figure something out. Eric Cerna, who I knew through Nate Patterson, who was just like a shredder, a total shredder. And we jammed together a few times on acoustic guitars. And I was like, I like this guy. Great. And we had super similar tastes too, and both were like huge Hendrix fiends. So that was cool. But I didn't have a drummer or bass player in mind. And
I ended up talking to this guy, and you met him, Nick, and I feel like you knew him for a while, and I forget his name. But he it was these two guys who I was talking to about possibly joining the band, and it was a drummer and a bass player, super talented dudes, like crazy talented, and they said that they were going to like quit school to come up and join the band, and I was like, don't do that, please.
Yeah.
Don't quit school, but like come up and try out and we'll see how it goes. They came up and they tried out, and it was really cool. Like, they were super talented. We were all hanging out. Both of them told me that they hated the Beatles, which was fucking crazy. One of them told me that he had read some book and knew exactly how to manipulate people. I forget exactly how that conversation went, but it was like, okay, because I think I was talking to him about some like relationship problem he had, and the way he was explaining things to me was like, it's okay, I understand how to manipulate people to do anything I need them to do. So like, we'll talk in a few days. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Trying to impress you based on.
I don't know who that impresses. That's just a red flag.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But anyways, I ended up talking to Luke and talking to Eric, and I was like, well, you guys are already in this band. I don't know like what to do. I thought their tryout was like really good, but how do you guys feel about it? And both of them were like, no, please, I don't want to be in a band with these guys.
Interesting.
I was like, okay, so, and I remember this conversation so well. I was like, so if I go to them and I tell them that they have to go home, will you back me up? And they both were like, of course, we'll totally back you up. It was a talk that we all had, all of us together. And I was like, guys, I'm sorry, but it's just not going to work. Like, it doesn't feel right. And I remember distinctly Eric Cerna being like, almost like interrupting and being like, it's not so bad, you know, like, I don't know, it's not so bad, like,
oh, like he's trying to now fight for them.
Yeah, but in a way that was like not necessarily defending them. It was just throwing a wrench into the gears of this moment being over. And then Luke kind of joined in and did that as well. And so I was there basically in that moment, just firing these two guys who had apparently quit college to come up and join this band, which again, I reiterate, was not something I asked them or told them to do. It was not my understanding. But yeah, so then I found out that Luke wanted his brother to come and play drums for the band. And then Eric wanted his friend, Josh Rowe, to come and play bass for the band. And that lineup kind of lasted for like a year, maybe a year and a half. Well, so this is like around 2007.
I love Josh, by the way. This is
super sweet dude. I mean, they're all sweet people, but it was just not the right fit. And so there was this event that ended up happening in the band where we were on tour with Scary Kids Scaring Kids. Luke and I stayed on the bus, and the other guys took the van. The van broke down in Phoenix, and the bus ended up in Pomona, and I did an acoustic set. And then basically what happened was the van was broken because of some work that was done at a Jiffy Lube, and the thing that a lawyer told us we needed to do was nothing. They were like, don't do anything with the van. Don't get it fixed. Like, we have to get it inspected, and so we can prove that, like, the reason that it broke down, the engine basically fell out, was because of this thing that Jiffy Lube did. And the next day, they ended up, like, getting it fixed and selling it because their parents told them to do it. And then when there was no money to pay for this to happen, because they basically had a conversation with their parents to borrow money and make that happen, and then they called me and they were like, we fixed it. And we borrowed money from our parents, and now our parents are wondering how you're going to pay them back.
right.
It's like, I don't even know what the fuck this is. But anyways, that shit was this huge fallout within the band where...
And that's the inception of this band. This is an Act 1 tour, right?
Yeah, I think it was an Act 2 tour. But basically, we are at the point where once those dudes left, because I basically told their parents, I was like, look, I didn't make the decision to do what you guys did. You can sell the van or whatever to make the money back on whatever you did to the engine. I don't have to have this van. I don't have to share in whatever money it makes or anything like that. But like, I'm not gonna try and find some way to be personally responsible to you for this money. But anyways, after that shit like blew up, and then it was like, okay, well, what's gonna happen now? We got an offer for a tour to go play with Circus Survive. So it was just me and Eric Cerna at the time, and I didn't know who could come and do the tour. And I got reached out to by Cliff and Julio again from As Tall as Lions, the drummer and the bass player. And they were like, yo, let us do this tour. I was like, fucking for sure. They're such an incredible duo. So we went and we did that tour, but obviously they were in ATAL, so they weren't going to like stick around and be in my band. But it was more like, if you ever need people, if we're available, we'll do it. And after that, I wanted to make the next record. And that's around the time, no, we got an offer to do Australia. And it was like, okay, these guys can't come with me, mostly because I can't really afford them. And I want to start making a new record. And that's when I called my brother up and asked him, now you can take over, Nick.
Yeah, sure. I guess just a little bit of backstory before that was, well, yeah, I was playing in a band with Casey and some other friends from high school. And then we kind of had another incarnation of the band with a different friend that I met in college, playing guitar. And then Casey like moved away. And it was like pretty much the only person that I've ever steadily been in a band with growing up and played with. And so it was like, okay, well, what the hell do I do now? And so I started playing with this other band called Figure One. And while I was doing that and we were playing around, I feel like the same venues, like the Pay to Play on the Sunset Strip and stuff like that.
Key Club, Whiskey, Roxy.
Parents' house with Trios. And I was missing playing with them, but I was also like so insanely jealous. I'm like, guys, we have to stop these local fucking gigs and get out. And one guy's like, well, you know, I work at like a really great company and I'm finishing up my college credits and then I'm going to do this. Another one is, well, I'm getting married and I have this going on. I was like, okay, well, we need merch. We should start booking some more shows. Whatever. Kind of just sat around and did nothing. And then Casey would come by on another tour and another tour. And I'm in the audience watching those shows and I'm seeing people singing along. Like at first I felt like it was like, you know, I'm looking around, there's like 100, 125 kids. And then it was like 250, 500. I'm just like, holy, this is ridiculous. And so it got to the point to where I told the band, I said, listen, if somebody wants to take me out on drums or on bass, because I'm just working dead end jobs at this point, like trades jobs as a solar hot water technician and a custom water feature in like people's backyards or on their property technician and just stuff that it wasn't a life goal like music was. It was just to make ends meet so I could play music. And so after I told them that, hey, I just want to get out of here and play music, they said, okay, yeah, sure. Well,
Then why don't you get the fuck out?
Yeah, you're fired from the band. And I was like, wait, what? And they said, well, we can't really trust you to like, you know, put your everything into this and
Jesus.
and be
To this
here.
thing that they
I
are
love the-
unwilling to put their everything into.
Exactly. I love the idea of guys that are not really willing to do the band firing the one guy that does want to do the band.
Sounds like every band ever.
That's why I'm so confused. I'm like, what is happening? Like, if we do something, I want to be there for it. But anyways, that happened, and so like immediately, I started looking for work on Craigslist. I found this job, English as a you know to this private preschool and kindergarten in Japan.
So
It's
sick.
Just really quickly, just because I think for the sake of chronology here, has Act 1 already happened? Have you already recorded
Yes.
on Act 1?
This is like 2007, 2008. Would I
Well,
think, right?
You recorded.
Act 1 is 2006. Act 2 is 2007. And so I think that you came out in 2008.
I came out January 2008, but I was in Japan for. So basically, I moved to Japan like on the spot, broke my lease agreement, and I was just like, I need a major change of pace. Went out there, I was like, fuck music. I'm just gonna, because their discipline over there for their education is incredible, and it's inspired me to go back to school where I just had some credits at a community college and get my degree in cultural anthropology and sociology. And so I got the summer accelerated courses that I had to have the dean sign off on because I was taking so many credits. And then I think there was one more semester that I went to. I got accepted to Cal State Channel Islands. I was picking out my classes, and I was just like, well, I'll play music when I play music, but I'm just going to go after this degree. And then Casey, as I was picking my classes, Casey called me and he's like, hey man, I'd really love for you to join the band. And I was like, yeah,
yeah.
Okay,
I'm really
that
looking
sounds
for
great.
a direction in life right now. I'll take it.
He's like, move out here. The first tour that we're going on is Soundwave in Australia, and then we're going on this international tour. This is crazy. And so moved out, lived with Casey and Andy, and then we
That was on the East Coast, right?
yes, that was on the East Coast, and then we found.
Pawtucket.
I can't really remember how we found the
Chris?
Yeah.
I want to say like Facebook or something like that.
So the funny thing that happened on stage was so we're on tour. This is the first tour that we ever take with them. It's in Australia. I can't remember which city it was.
I want to say it was Sydney.
Sydney. Okay, I think you're right. And so he was singing backing vocals while he was playing bass.
Yep.
And he decided to step up between one of the songs. And he's like, how you doing, Sydney? And they were like, yeah, all right. And he said, I just said the name of your fucking city. How you doing?
But wait, he paused. He paused between it, and then in like disgust of the initial reaction, was like, I just said the name of your fucking city. How the fuck are you doing, Sydney? And everyone in the band was like,
No,
But the crowd.
Yeah, this is
everyone.
not,
I think in that moment, we all shared the same. He's not going to be in our band, right?
Yeah.
Cool. We're on the same page. Let's finish this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he knew too. As soon as we were done with that, he was like, that was too far, right? It's like, yeah, that was yeah, you're fired. So
I also
Yeah,
love
got you
that
fired.
that's what he reduced it to, is like, I said the name of your city. It wasn't
why
that
aren't
your
you
reaction
reacting?
wasn't good enough. It was like, but I did the thing. Like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
do you mean?
but I think with Chris at that time, it was like, this guy is the type of guy I cannot be around. Like, I can't see myself touring with this person around.
Right.
Like, it's just not going to be possible. Also, he was a very good musician, but
Yes.
it was not the vibe. There was not necessarily the even like creative plane between
I
us.
think there was
Around this time, then it becomes sort of solidified that Nick has joined, right? Nick has joined the band.
Yeah, he officially joined before coming out at all. It was like a long discussion about this is what it would mean. This is kind of like how much shit we're going to have to continue eating. This is the situation that exists right now if you come out.
And that
And
would have
then
been
it would
like
be like-
08, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, January of 08.
And so like Nick was saying, like he was in the process of different life path. So it and the timing of it required him to be like, okay, if I come and do that, I can't continue with my schooling. Like that's what it's going to mean. Again, a drummer being asked to quit college to join this band. Yeah, Nick joined, and one of the first things we did was Andy and I had been running a studio out of the basement. And then at some point, I think when we came back from Soundwave, our home had been broken into. And
God.
they had taken all of our TVs.
In Pawtucket?
All of our TVs and the Xbox. Some other things too. It was in Pawtucket.
Nothing downstairs.
They did not go into the basement, and the basement was a fully functioning studio. Yeah, I called our landlord and was like, hey, we're going to leave. Like, we were robbed. They saw we had a bunch of nice shit. I have a studio. I came home and our door was wide open, and we were only gone for a week. And it was like, this is so basically we're going to break our lease. We're going to find somewhere else. We move. Nick and Andy move into a place in Cranston. I move into a place in Providence with my ex. And then we are in discussions with somebody who's running a studio in Cranston.
With your now ex, though, not your ex at the time.
No,
Ex
I wasn't. No,
Okay,
I didn't move in with an ex. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I was just trying to give clarity
with
on
my
that.
now ex. And we so we
You and
ended
Andy
up
started that studio, though.
well, me and Andy and Nick ended up starting a studio and a mixing room in this building with this existing studio called White Noise.
Yeah.
And it was like they had a few different rooms. We came up with an agreement to like produce for them and run this studio that we ended up but while we were doing that, we were also looking at this. It was awful. It was awful.
Yeah.
It's a terrible space. It was super loud. There were people dealing drugs out of the offices. It was.
But that was a plus to Big Nick being there, was the construction collar kind of know-how, right?
Well, what ended up happening was there was an adjacent space that we had walked through, and Nick had come up with sort of a plan of how we could turn it into a studio. And then we called your dad for some sort of like feedback and stuff. And then eventually he was like, well, we could technically, like, we can help you with our account with Home Depot and stuff like that, and with building materials and money off and all of that. And so basically Nick single-handedly, until painting and stuff, framed and drywalled a new studio for us. And that was the studio that while we were writing Act 3, that was the studio where we recorded it.
Yeah.
That was the transition. And then I want to say just before that, we had a different bassist, Sagan, who was Andy Wildrick's friend. But yeah, and then for the record, we were supposed to have Nate Patterson. That's right. This story is great, which is.
Hold on. So Sagan was before Nate, though.
Sagan was before Nate. And then we had some money from the label, and we got some gear, and then everybody was given an amount of money that's like, this should cover you for the length of making this record. And the first thing that Nate did when he got his money is he bought a ticket to Aruba, and he went and he stayed with his girlfriend for basically the entirety of the time to make it. He came back and he tracked maybe like 1 or 2 songs of bass, but still up until that point, I was basically the bassist of the band.
That feels like the most Nate thing in the world for some reason. Like, all right, thanks, guys.
Yeah, and then when I confronted him about it, which I was way more confrontational back then, I was like, dude, what the fuck's going on here? Like, that money was for you. Oh, when he came back, he quit. That's right. When he came back officially from Aruba, he was like, so I'm done doing this, by the way. Like, like all right, man. But basically, I forget if the first tour that we all did. That's right, because Josh started playing guitar, and then Connor came in from having been TM and started playing bass.
Yeah.
And that basically brought us up to making the Color Spectrum. And the Color Spectrum was another time that there was one of these huge blowouts. I'm trying to think of, when was the first tour you did with us, Rob?
Summer of 2010. But Max was not on that tour.
No. So, okay.
I was before that tour.
Yes.
Right.
So I think that's the next event, was you joining the band, because that happened, I want to say, just before I went and did the Color Spectrum.
Are you talking to me or to Max?
To you.
Well, Max was, like I said, Max was there before me. I don't know how many.
No,
Max,
but
did you do?
that was a fill-in thing. He's talking about people that were like brought into the fold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
basically me asking Sean if he, because I was
Sean
brought
being
out.
Max's dad.
Sean being
For
Max's
context,
father.
everyone.
Me coming out to California at all was like, hey, we're choosing right now between Max going to college, which he doesn't want to do, or if you wanted to come out and you can have a studio that you work out of and like just make the studio available to Max and teach him what you know. It was like, okay, I'll come out and I'll do that. And so at some point it was like, I asked Sean, because I want to say, Max, were you 17 or you were 18 or how old were you when you did that
point
fill-in?
you were building the studio?
No. At the
or
point that you came out on that first
I turned
fill-in
18
tour.
on that tour.
So that was very much just like, Sean, would you be comfortable with me bringing Max out to play bass for this run of shows? I don't know if he was or wasn't excited about it, because he was very like, yeah, I mean, if you want to ask him if he wants to come out, you know, sure. I mean, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, it is funny though, because he's learned by now, but at the time, I'm sure he thought that it was the 1980s hair metal fantasy of what
That's
being
how my
on
mom
tour
thinks
is.
of touring too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
for
like
sure.
he's like, well, you know, he's 17. He should be okay for hookers and blow, but you know, throwing TVs out of windows and shit. But
So
Yeah.
my first tour was summerish, like I think it was August or something, which in my mind isn't summer, but whatever, because it is. It was 2010. It was Porcupine Tree, us, Coheed, and kind of the premise for that. Wait, was it? Yeah, it was 2010. So kind of the premise for that was, to back up slightly, at the end of 2009, As Tall as Lions had basically been touring for nearly 6 straight months, like with weeks off in between tours. And at a headlining show, a sold out headlining show in London in December of 2009, everyone quit the band. And then the premise became,
Sick.
as of the next year, because the band was actually just 4 people, but at this point there were 6 of us on stage plus crew, et cetera, et cetera. They were just like, we're just going to do this year by ourselves to see if we even want to do it anymore. So I'm now at home looking for an actual job and just, you know, whatever. And then but I don't remember if it was Cerna or Josh, but one of the two were just kind of like, before that tour was just like, hey man, do you just want to come out and do this for fun? We don't really have a keyboard player. We kind of have a little bit of like a rotating cast at the moment. Where on that tour, Connor was on bass, Josh and Cerna both on guitar, and then Big Nick on drums, and Casey obviously. But so it was more or less like mentioned to me as, do you want to do this for fun? You know, I know you're not playing with the band anymore. And I said, yeah, of course, it sounds great. What I think was sort of their ulterior motive was, at the end of that tour, they both left the band. And I think they were trying to leave with a lighter conscience by now getting their
Filling
friend
their
that they
own
know can
shoes.
play guitar
Yeah.
kind of into the fold, and being like, well, all right, we're out, man. Well, you know, take care. And I remember having a conversation with you at the end of that tour about if I wanted to stay and get the promotion to guitar. We have a running joke in this band that you get promoted from keyboards to guitar. And
Gavin never made it.
He never made it. But he got to guitar though. I don't know how that works. But also, I guess for the sake of context, I played keyboards in As Tall as Lions. I played keyboards on that first tour in the Deer Hunter. Before As Tall as Lions, I never played keyboard. I was always confused why they asked me to do that, where even when they met me, I was playing guitar. I've played guitar since I was 12 years old. But so I was super excited to play in this band, and especially to be playing guitar. So that's kind of how I ended up in the fold. But so the chronology to me that then introduced me to Sauce and to Max, really, I had met Max previously on the tour that he played bass on, because my band, not As Tall as Lions, but Après Vous, opened the show. And since I had known all the other guys and it was in
That was
Akron,
a sloppy night. Not for
Hey, man.
Après-Vous, but I mean,
I think forever. That's when I accidentally
for
shut
everyone, that was
the
a
Van Door on
sloppy
Josh's
night.
head. I brought shots on stage for everyone. And I just remember Casey going, no, he's 18. He's 18 when I was trying to max his shot. It was like, whoops. But yeah, I remember having to bring out I had Josh's sunglasses on my head, I had his acoustic guitar on my body, and I had one of his flip-flops on my hands. Like, yes. But anyway, so fast forward to early 2011, I basically, As Tall as Lions was doing Australian farewell shows after the band had already broken up, which more or less just felt like a small vacation in Australia until
good.
certain things
Can't
got
wait.
muddied, but it was nice for the most part. But basically, that butted up nearly directly to the first tour that I was going to be doing as a member of the band playing guitar. So I flew out early to start it just going over songs with Casey. And then I had to leave to go to As Tall as Lions rehearsals in Los Angeles. We went and did the whole tour. And then I had to come back. Actually, they like detained Dan and I at the airport because we were leaving a few days early from what our visa said. And it was like a whole fucking thing. It was just like, no, I just have to go back. Like, this isn't, I'm not nefariously leaving your country. I just should leave.
Why you leaving
Yeah.
so soon, huh?
That's genuinely what they did there. It's like, this doesn't match the date. I'm like, well, I don't know, man. I
Be great
didn't
if
make
they
the
were like,
visa.
You didn't have enough fun. Here's some other tourist locations you could visit.
Right. Just trying to sell me on things.
Pro bono.
But so then I flew back to LA. I don't even remember how I got to you guys. But I had, I think, maybe 1 day or so, maybe 2 days, I don't know, with basically the band as you see on the screen, other than Connor.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I met Sauce.
Yeah,
So
you're
Sauce, you should tell us what you were doing. Where were you when you joined the Deer Hunter?
Okay, it wasn't very long before Act 3 came out. I remember being introduced to the band. Somebody had shown me the band and said that they were a local Rhode Island band. I'm like, what? This doesn't sound like Rhode Island music at all, you know? Not that Rhode Island music is bad, it just doesn't sound like anything that would come out of Rhode Island. And also, I would like have known of the musicians because, you know, you guys know me. I know everybody in Rhode Island.
You're the
the
king
king.
of Providence.
King of Providence. Yeah, we know.
Exactly.
We
Yeah,
all
exactly.
know, man. Come on.
I
We
didn't have
respect
to say it, you know?
Didn't night myself.
Glock
Yeah.
has a song about you called "The King of Providence."
Wait, who has a
I love
song
that.
about me?
Uh,
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, man. Is that unreleased?
yeah. Never mind. Let's not talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
it.
It's
Continue.
spooky.
Oh, boy. Well,
It is
anyway.
harrowing.
So, like, I had no idea who these guys were, but I was like, shit, this is a good band, you know? And, you know, I got really into Act 2, and, you know, very shortly thereafter, I was playing bass in a metal band, and my guitar player
What
was
were they
actually
called?
the name of the band was called The Empire Shall Fall.
Hell yeah,
And
dude! I still have that vinyl.
yeah,
And
baby.
who was your singer?
Jesse Leach, who was in a band called is in a band called Killswitch Engage. And so
Oh, just a little band.
but I was, I guess, similarly to Nick, I was like the one guy in all these groups that was like trying to do something, but everybody else was, you know, closing in on 30 and, you know, kind of getting out of it. And I was just like, shit, man, like I'm like ready, you know, I've always been ready. Anyway, so my friend Mark, who was in that band with me, he actually was working. I think he was renting a room from, I don't know if he was renting it from you guys or if he was renting it from somebody else, but he was in the whole White Noise studio circle with you guys. And I think he was just like mixing albums or something on the side and like tracking guitars and stuff. So we were kind of around each other, but we never really met. And then my band played a show, I think in like Dover, New Hampshire, or something like that, and
Hell yeah.
at like the Brick
VFW
House,
Hall?
I think. No, I think it was a place called the Brick House or some shit like that. Nick comes up after the show and starts talking to me, and he's talking about my bass gear. I realize he must be a musician if he knows anything about bass gear. He says he's in this band called the Deer Hunter. I'm like, oh, I know you guys. I just started listening to you guys like at this point, like just a couple months prior. And we kind of became fast friends, and we hung out, and then my metal band started recording our first album at your, would you guys call it Blue Sky Studios or something like that?
Sky.
Wild Sky. Okay, so we started recording our album where you guys, I think, had just recorded Act 3. And as we're, tracking drums one day, Nick shows up and he's hanging out, kind of supervising the studio. And he's like, hey, you want to hear what we've been working on? And I was like, yeah, sure. He brings me down to his Jeep and shows me the beginning of Act 3. I'm like, oh my God, this is fucking crazy. And then, for the next couple of years, we're just kind of friends, we just kind of hang out and do the things that we do that friends do. And then, like, 2011 comes up. I think it's like February or something, and Nick just says, hey, would you, we need a bass player. We're doing this tour in support of the Color Spectrum, and would you be down? And at the time, like, I was going through some shit, but I also had been working this, for me, a dead end job for like 7 years at this point. And I was just ready. I was just ready to be done with it.
But that is it. And then, as far as things went before we started making Act 4 was when we parted ways with Connor. And then that making Act 4 was when we solidified what everyone in this band does now. Everybody here have a great holiday, whatever you choose to celebrate, Christmas or otherwise. Sauce, what are you going to be celebrating this year?
Well, I'd be celebrating Christmas.
You would be, but you're not, right?
Yeah.
What are you celebrating?
I'm gonna do Boxing Day.
Very good.
So Kwanzaa.
Very good.
I don't think Kwanzaa's Boxing Day. I think Boxing Day is Boxing Day.
It falls on the same day, I believe.
Really?
Oh
man.
Nick.
Two
You
holidays
chose
go
poorly.
2 holidays go head to head this Christmas.
One
This
will
Boxing Day.
leave.
Yeah.
Which of those 2 holidays traditionally has more and better food?
I would imagine Kwanzaa.
I don't think Boxing Day is a holiday. It's just the name I think they call it that because you're packing all your shit up.
Yeah.
That's
it's
still
UK
a holiday
thing.
worth celebrating, and any holiday gets a meal. Let's find it out. Let's just get this
Any
one
day
lesson
gets a
before
meal.
we go.
Let's not.
Boxing Day.
UK
What is
is
the
not
traditional
necessarily-
Boxing Day meal? While the Christmas Day feast is a great
Is
part
it
of Christmas.
leftovers?
Another highlight is the Boxing Day sandwich. It can include
Ooh.
whatever you like. I love that. It's any
Just
kind of
a
sandwich you want.
It's a Cubano
But it's
for me.
gotta be. It says you can include whatever you like, whether you want to keep it simple with turkey and stuffing or go all out and throw a roast potato and sprout in there too.
Hello.
It's whatever. So have a sandwich, celebrate
will-
Boxing Day.
Oh yeah, I'll be thinking of you guys.
What a
when I'm
fucking
eating my-
low energy meal. That's so good.
Come
A
over for
traditional
sandwiches,
Boxing
everybody.
Day sandwich.
Yeah.
Betwixt 2 pieces of Wonder Bread lay bologna and American cheese. Dry.
Sprinkle some fries on these cupcakes.
We just looked at each other, horrified.
Makey words.
They know. My time has come. The algorithm knows.
The Makey words podcast.
We have fun, okay? We have fun.